please.
Chairman Louis H. Trujillo.
Present.
Commissioner Michael Montoya.
Present.
Commissioner David Romero.
Here.
Commissioner David Uribe Jr.
Here.
Thank you, Chairman. We have a quorum.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to just take a moment to thank God for everything and thank God for moving our community forward and having us make good choices for our community and for our citizens. And we ask for His guidance all the time. Thanksgiving for our guests that are here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. I'll entertain a second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Uribe.
Yes.
Commissioner Romero.
Yes.
Commissioner Montoya.
Yes.
A motion by Commissioner Romero, second by Commissioner Montoya. Thank you, Chairman. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the public input. We do not have anybody signed up for public input at this time. The next item on the agenda is the presentation, our Housing Authority Finance Report.
Sure.
Mr. Romero.
We have the minutes.
I'm sorry, the minutes, I'm sorry. The approval of the minutes from July the 15th, 2020.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Mr. Romero has a motion on the floor. I'll entertain a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Montoya.
Yes.
Commissioner Uribe.
Yes.
Commissioner Romero.
Yes.
I have a motion by Commissioner Romero, a second by Commissioner Uribe. Thank you, Chairman. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the presentation of our Housing Authority Finance Report.
Tasha, welcome.
Hi, thank you. This is the first month of our fiscal year. So in front of you guys, in front of Mayor and Commissioners today is our finance report. If you see how we finished off last year, you could see that we're pretty in line to go the same direction with our revenues. Our dwelling rent for the month of July was $43,837. The operating subsidy accrued is $58,249, and like I want to remind everybody, this isn't cash in bank, this is actually accruals. So a lot of times that money is still held with HUD until they release it down to us. Housing other income, we had $344, and the transfer in from the repayment agreement is $30,518. So that gives us right on track with 8% of our revenues as we were expecting. Then on the employee expense side, you'll see a employee expense year-to-date actual of $56,048 and an operating expense of $896. As we're opening up the next fiscal year, we're getting POs open and all of that, so it takes about a month to get everything processed and through. So those expenditures you're going to see rather higher, quite a bit higher for the next month, but we should be in line for the 16% next month. So that gives us a 4% of our total budget. And like we had expressed before, as we transfer over currently right now, my salary will be getting taken out of the employee expense, but my services will still remain intact for the Housing Authority here in Las Vegas, as well as adding the addition of Mr. Baca's services to the Housing Authority as well.
Is that,
Yeah, that's all I have for
I
you.
have a couple of questions, and you'll never leave without answering this question every time you give a report. Is there anything in the budget that you need to inform us about that is abnormal or that we should know about? Any red flags?
There isn't any red flags in there currently. I think we're going to have to add a transfer in from our capital fund that'll probably go in a separate line for the revenue line. The budget that you guys approved is the budget that we're working off, and that was the budget that was approved back in May, and that budget remained intact when the final budget came to your guys' approval now in July.
Okay.
So our budget did not change on that end. The only thing, like I said, that would be abnormal would be the operating expenses being rather low, and that was just due to having to reopen everything and then waiting for the budget to get approved and everything else with the larger expenditures coming through.
And on a personal note, Tasha, I know you're no longer an employee of the city, but I'd like to recognize you for all the years and your dedication that you've given to the city of Las Vegas.
Thank you.
And your service, your professionalism, and will never be forgotten, and you'll never be overlooked. And the Housing Authority got a very good employee, and I just wanted to thank you personally for your service to the city.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And you're not losing the services. I'll still be here and I'll still be around. And like I had said when we were first transferring, anything we do, I know Councilor Montoya had talked about like the Mercadio site and all of that. Any projects that the Housing Authority does, we are still going to want to go hand in hand with the city on everything.
Sure.
You guys won't necessarily be the pass-through fiscal agent, but that just means the check's going to be written out of a different bank account. We're still going to come to you guys and ask to be put on your agenda for ribbon cuttings, anything like that.
Sure.
So we're still going to keep our mayor and council completely informed and in the know with everything that we're doing with the Housing Authority.
We appreciate that so much. Thank you. Mr. Romero.
I just had one, thank you for bringing up the Macario, area, is that I know I've been, asked is why can't we do city parks or, things of that nature there? And just for clarification, it belongs to housing, which now will become part of your authority. We really have no, responsibility over that property. It's not the property that belongs to the city of Las Vegas per se. So, that's the reason why.
And the responsibility that we do have is to replace those units.
Yes.
They were deemed uninhabitable. So the responsibility that we now have is to replace them. Whether we replace those units at that particular site or throughout, if we could come out with a better plan to replace units elsewhere in the community with the other properties that we have, then we can work on working with the city to get maybe a park or something like that, or some sort of MOU working so that we can get some sort of facility for public use out there.
With the
So
units.
it just like I've said, I think before, it's in our 5-year plan. There's a process to get everything through, developers, the share-out meetings that we need to have with the public, all of that. Right now, of course, public meetings are a little bit hard to have with input and then making sure that everybody's abiding by the restrictions that are given. But that does not mean that the Mercadio Gonzalez site is going to be overlooked. We had 42 units that were boarded up that we needed to get replaced, rehabilitated, and done. Now we're going to have 10 units that we just got permission to go out for A&E services. So those 10 units, because they were already on our plan, we're going to get to be able to rehab and do that. Once we get those kind of units housed and they're not getting counted against us, and we can clear up the titles on those clouded titles that we have out there, once we get to that point, which we're moving moving along. We've already gotten 32 out of the 42, I think, that were originally done. We've gotten those ones kind of behind us now. And once we get to that point, then we can move forward and really work on getting some sort of development there, whether it's a tax credit property, whether it's a multi-use facility kind of thing. There's a lot of different kinds of resources that we can go to and a lot of different routes that we can go to on it. And of course, the city would be working with us hand in hand throughout the whole process.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya?
I was wondering, on that in Mercadio Gonzalez development, do you guys still keep some water taps there, or you'll have to be reapplying for those? I wonder.
Well, we're probably going to have to reapply for them. When they took them out, even the ones that we're redoing, like out on the Sandoval Choya area, and can you guys hear me? I have
Yes.
a mask on, but I'm trying to project as much as I can. Those ones that we have to rehabilitate and that we're doing on Sandoval, Yucca, Choya, because of how old those taps were, we're still having to redo a lot of the lines and get them tapped in. And back there in where Encino Circle used to be, there was actually, I think it was a master meter, was it not? So there was no individual meter, so that it would have to get re-tapped into the main line, and you'd have to pay for all of that to be done.
So just point of clarification, Mr. Mayor, they will have to submit a new permit for subdivision and water lines and water hookups and water taps. Also, I'd like to thank Ms. Barbara Perea for stepping in as director for housing when we needed you the most, and the city needed you the most. Thank you both for doing a fine job. Mr. Baca, the question to you is, now that you have put your foot into this, what's the future of Las Vegas look like, and do you think we pretty much like overall normal as any other city as far as their housing?
Yes, sir, I really truly believe that. I think if anything, it's going to streamline the process of how we can effectively help the tenants, because it puts out a layer of bureaucracy, basically. And we can do, like, for example, with them, there's cutoffs that they can't really purchase materials that are needed in late June. We purchase materials all the way up to the end of the fiscal year, and because we can't control it, we can't do that kind of stuff. So people aren't waiting to have repairs done, and we can be on top of it and take care of them, much more efficiently. For one, it does take, like I say, it does take a layer of government out there, and it just it makes HUD a little happier and gets them off y'all's back, which has kind of been a burden for several years. I kind of know some of the history about. I've been in housing 19 years, and so I'm pretty familiar with what went on with Las Vegas, and I've known several of the directors in the past, so I kind of understand that whole process of what happened, and I didn't agree with it back then. And I think Natasha and Barbara have really stepped up and have made the best use of it and get in the right direction. So, but I think one of the things as a council, I really feel that you guys were forward thinking and going ahead and acquisition and getting into the northern region, because it's going to make us more desirable for development and everything, because we're a larger organization.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
And thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Before I do pass the mic for Executive Director, I do want to thank each and every one of you too for giving me the opportunity to have been in the position of the interim director. I learned a lot. Natasha has always been the right-hand person for me, and she's actually very deserving of her new position. And so we do welcome Terry Baca as our new Executive Director of the Housing Authority. And Mr. Baca, mic is yours for the Housing Director's monthly report, and I know Natasha's going to be helping with that.
Yeah, she's going to have to do it, because, like I say,
But I do appreciate
I'm
it.
looking at it, and I know, and I'm going to let her do it, because you guys are the ones that earn these
Sorry.
great numbers.
I should have discussed that, Terry. I will go ahead and give a little description of our housing, what's going on with housing. So sorry, I didn't update Mr. Baca on everything before we came. The housing managers are still up to date with all their recertifications. Maintenance is still working on unit turnarounds. We have currently 50 applicants on our waiting list. By bedroom size, we have 40 on our 1-0 to 1 bedroom waiting list, 6 on our 2 bedroom waiting list, 3 on our 3 bedroom waiting list, 2 on our 4 bedroom waiting list, 1 on our 5 bedroom waiting list. So we are still housing people. We are still doing recertifications. Everything is still operating as best as we can. Even projects are ongoing. And I don't know if you have any questions on the other report. Other than that, I don't have anything other than I did want to again thank everybody for the opportunity and the learning experience. I still will be in the office as well.
Barbara, will you be a city employee?
Commissioner, sorry, yes, I am.
Okay.
I believe.
Currently.
You want to go ahead and.
Currently.
Currently, yeah.
You can't take her, sorry.
Eventually.
No, I know, I'm just joking. But thank you for the wonderful job that you've done too. You've done a stellar job in that time that you were there.
Yeah, and I just want to, reiterate, I feel blessed to have the staff that Las Vegas has.
Yeah.
I feel I have a really good staff in Raton. The staff here is top notch and best in the state of New Mexico. And between our two staffs, we can help the regional a lot as far as turning them around and getting them going in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Baca.
So, Mr. Baca, you're in charge of Las Vegas now and Raton, and what else?
Well, actually, I'm actually over the Regional Housing Authority, and I'm Executive Director currently for Raton and the Regional Housing Authority in the City of Las Vegas Housing.
And who else is involved? What other community?
Well, it includes Grants, Seminole, Penasco, Cuesta, Maxwell,
Rio Riva.
And Rio Riva, yeah, also.
Central.
And so actually, the whole northern region pretty much is everything north of I-40, excluding Union County, and I believe it was Clay County, the Roy area. So that's what the northern region consists of.
So, my next question, Mr. Mayor, was, can you make sure that we have emergency housing available? Because apparently right now we don't have any, and there's situations that arise sometimes where families, their homes burn down, or they get vacated for certain reasons, and they have nowhere to go.
And we have that same situation in Raton. We have the same situation in the northern region. That's something we can take to the regional board.
If I may, Chairman, Commissioners, we do have a priority waiting list, and we do have a priority for, it's just not called emergency housing, but we do have a preference for victims of domestic violence as well as victims who have lost their home due to fire, flood, or other natural disasters.
And with us, we just have for domestic violence. We do not, we don't, in Raton, we don't have any preferences. And so, because we feel strongly that every person that comes into the Housing Authority office needs a home or they would be there. You know, that's how we feel. But in a case of, in a disaster, yes, I think that's a good idea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. You want to continue with your report, or is that done?
We are just ongoing, just an update on the projects that we're doing. Ongoing on the Bernalillo Street, we have the fence that has been taken down. It will get replaced with wrought iron fences.
Oh, wow.
Yes, down in the Bernalillo where the Samaritan House used to be housed, that area is all going to be surrounded with wrought iron, so it's going to look really pretty. I'm working on getting the sagebrush fence fixed. We also have a sidewalk project that is throughout the housing authorities up in, we have Apache, Loudon, Zuni, and Hot Springs, I believe, are the areas that project is going to be focused on. And those are all of the sidewalks and any sort of trees that are lifting the sidewalks and are going to be getting removed. And they're mostly just stumps now, they're not actually trees, but the roots are still getting into the pipes and they're still lifting our sidewalks everywhere. We also have a Fascias and Soffits project where they're going to be going around and replacing and structuring, well, some of them they're going to be replacing and redoing them. If they just need paint, then they're just going to be painting them. I don't have the exact scope of work in my head right now, but that's throughout the Loudon site and I believe one of the Kaya sites as well. And the reason that we're doing that is because that was one of the things when they did do our reactive physical inspection, that was one of the big things that was noticed was fencing, sidewalks, fascias, and then the stucco. So as we finish the stucco in one area, we're going to start in the next area. So the only area that we really have left after that for the stuccoing is going to be our sagebrush site down the sagebrush area along with our offices and all of those areas. So as soon as we get to that, what we'll be doing is there's not actual brick on the exteriors, it's called brick veneer. So there's our, you can probably explain how brick veneer works better than I can. It's
the walls are framed and then you have a brick ledge where the bricks will actually come on. So it's more of a physical appearance than actual structural.
Yeah, taken off and then we'll be stuccoing it and redoing it. We have 3 units that are currently under modernization status for testing services. So as soon as we can find somebody who will do a chemical compound test in our area, we'll get that going and we'll be working on a request for proposals for the 10 unit rehabilitation project on the Sagebrush Sandoval, that area, so that those 10 units can get up to houseable standards, so we can add 10 more. And then I just wanted to add, as soon as they're on our waiting list for any sort of natural disaster or VAWA, they're basically put to the top of the waiting list. The only time we don't house them currently or right away is we don't always have the house or the size that these people are needing. So if it's a 1-bedroom, it's a 2-bedroom, it's a 5-bedroom, like sometimes they'll have to take a smaller or a larger unit just depending on how everything's working out and what the waiting lists look like. And so that's a lot of times some of the problem is we don't have 1-bedrooms readily available. We don't have 2-bedrooms readily available. If we only have like 3-4 bedrooms available, then we're having to kind of move them into units and then move them out of units and put them into different units. And so, but we have had quite a bit of people that come in, and then if they don't qualify for the income standards, we're not allowed to house them.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask, and I know it's a capital project for a lot of organizations, but security, cameras, emergency telephones, those types of things. I don't know, some lady called one time from on Sagebrush and asked me, well, why did they take down the fence that they just put up? And wasn't it a theft? Did someone actually,
They cut the fence, yeah.
they cut the fence?
Yeah,
So-
we put it up and then they cut it.
Yeah. So she was wondering why the city did that, and I said, the city did not do that.
No.
It was vandalism. But she also asked about security. You know, I don't know, like, if there's any word down the road that you could add.
There's some housing grants out there.
Okay.
For security, for cameras and all
Okay.
that sort of stuff.
Perfect.
And once, like any percentage goes, once we are one regional housing authority, having 10 vacant units isn't gonna look like such a bad look as it does right now. So having those 10 vacant units still gives us the occupancy and the scores that we need to apply for these kind of grants. And like Mr. Baca had said earlier, these larger organizations are seen first when we apply for grants, then seen secondary when we apply for things. So that's also a win-win on our end because it'll open a lot more doors to funding that we were closed off to previously.
Gotcha. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
welcome, Mr. Baca, and we look forward to working closely with you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just had one question. I know there's kind of a big confusion. So officially, you guys haven't taken over yet completely? I know you've taken over the operations. There's still a transition. We're kind of in a transition period. Can you
Right.
kind of describe that part and what we have to do to, to make sure we get this done?
Well,
I know there was some property,
At this
Title and
point,
stuff
we
like that that we
have
had
to
to-
obviously do a title search. We have to have letters from the attorneys from both sides of the receiving organization and the transferring organization. You also have to have resolutions from each board, one receiving it and one transferring out. And then in addition to that, you have letters from the executive directors receiving it, and then all that information goes to HUD. And they have 180 days to review it. And at that point, during that 180-day review process, if there's anything that's not right, well, they'll kick it back to the housing authority and ask us to correct it. And then at that point, then it goes into HUD, it goes to HUD in Washington.
so is there anything that we as a council have to do in the meantime?
Not really. I mean, the biggest thing is just, since, we're a little different because we've always operated independent of the city of Raton. We do all of our accounting in-house. We do all of our payroll in-house. The only thing we actually deal with them on is our health insurance. So everything else, we have a separate PRA number, everything. I mean, a lot of that accounting side of it is going to be the most difficult part.
So is
And
there
that's why we have Natasha. She's our expert there, and she'll be able to help us there.
So is there kind of like a delay that we have to do to, meanwhile, until everything's done, or in the transition, or?
So the only delay that we're seeing right now is due to those clouded titles.
Right.
We can't find a company to do our title search for Las Vegas. Raton's is done, Northern's is done. Well, I don't think Northern didn't need one, but Raton needed one, they're done. They're signed, sealed, delivered. Us, because of the clouded title, we can't go to the title company that closed on the houses that clouded the titles. The other title company is a little skittish to do a title search on those properties as well. So HUD's working with us to try to get some sort of resolution to it all because they've been involved this whole time. So I think having our repayment agreement, I don't think you guys have received it yet, right? Have you guys received that from HUD yet? No, because it'll come to the city itself. Having that ready and the acknowledgements and all of that, what I'm hoping for is that we get some sort of resolution with those clouded titles, whether they release them, whether they release one at a time. However they do it, we just want to get those homeowners secured and the program whole at the same time, or as whole as it could be, because they're probably watching. As whole as it could be. Every time I say we're making the program whole, they're like, not quite, but you know, we want to make the program whole. That's the first step, and that's what you guys have been doing and you guys have been striving for. At one time, we were a little worried that it wasn't going to happen and we didn't know what to do. We've been having weekly meetings with our HUD staff to go over this, because what they're calling it is more of a consolidation. Normally, the housing authority that kind of absorbs the other housing authorities has the upper management. This way, it's actually the opposite. The upper management is coming from the two other organizations, and so that's kind of streamlining everything, because that's what they're wanting. This is what HUD is wanting. This is what they're striving for. They're even doing presentations on how this has happened. We're going from, I think they had at one time, what?
About 45 housing authorities.
45 housing authorities, and now we're down to like, what, 20?
Yeah, so
Like
in the low 20s.
In the low 20s, like 23 housing authorities. So they're trying to get it, because as funding goes, right now we're able to keep everything completely funded by the housing authority. We don't want to get to a point where we're having to rob Peter to pay Paul or anything like that. We want to be able to still be sustainable and not have to use a crutch of any sort on
So
any
is it kind of like a
any-
timeline you kind of expect, or not really until we get all that?
We're hoping to have everything in by August 30th. So by the end of this month, we're hoping to have everything that they needed from us in, and HUD will start their review. And then we're hoping by January, they'll give us the go-ahead to do any of that. Between August and January, they're going to give us more direction on transferring employees, transferring benefits, getting our ACOP together, getting the policies together, and by January, we'll have a consolidated policies, plans, procedures, staff, organizational chart, all of that will be, and that's kind of on our shoulders right now. And so we're working together to kind of get all of that taken care of, and no employee from any of the entities is going to lose anything. If anything, it's going to help and progress everybody.
Thank you.
The City of Las Vegas employees have the best benefit package, I have to say, of anybody that with the Northern and Raton. So everybody's going to gain somewhat, and nobody will be hurt. So I want to let you all know that.
We have 3 minutes. Mr. Montoya?
One last question. Are you guys overseen by a board?
Yes, we are. They're overseen by the regional board, and it consists of 7 people from counties throughout northern New Mexico. We actually have a member here out of Las Vegas that is one of our board members.
That was my concern. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baca. Welcome, and we'll be working with you closely. We appreciate
Thank you all.
you coming down here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. The next item is the Commissioner's report.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Welcome. Natasha and Barbara, you guys did a good job for us. You know, it's fine that is a director or somebody that can oversee the things. I'm always asking, how about the outside of the units? You know, she just talked about sidewalks and fences, and you know, I go to Charles, I go to other places in our housing areas look very good. You know, the landscaping, you know, so maybe now that Irene and Barbara and Natasha can work with that, we could see a little more improvement on that, you know, whatever you do.
I believe in curb and fill. You know, I think, I mean, in Raton, is one of our sites, actually, the Chamber of Commerce uses one of our sites in the brochure. So, I mean, that's something we're working on strongly, and you know, with them having less empty units and less for the maintenance staff to do, you know, in those units, that they can concentrate more out in the field and make sure to stay on top of that.
Yeah, because the residents always like something that looks nice, that, you know, that they're comfortable, you know, welcome, and thank you for, girls, thank you for the job you did, and Mr. Baca, welcome back, welcome to Vegas.
Thank you. Barbara?
Any other Commissioners? you. Next item on the agenda is executive session. No need for executive session. The next item on the agenda is the adjournment.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Romero, there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. I'll entertain a second.
Second?
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Commissioner Ulibarri?
Yes.
Commissioner Montoya?
Yes.
I have a motion by Commissioner Romero, second by Commissioner Ulibarri. Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you.